I am the standard bearer for the Libertarian Party, America's oldest and largest third party. We stand for the proposition of maximizing individual liberty and minimizing government power, getting the government out of one's home, one's school, one's workplace, one's wallet, one's personal life. And if my good friend Charles Baldwin wants to urge his supporters to vote for me, and Ralph Nader does, I'd be great on those issues, now is your chance. But our target in this election is to point out to the American people the tremendous damage that is being done to our Constitution, our economy, our family life, our education in this country by the monopoly status quo parties that we have running this country. We need to break that. That's how we will reassert freedom in America.
Thank you very much, Congressman. Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the question. I agree with Mr. Nader that there are several differences between us as well as agreements on some of what we call social issues. I am adamantly pro-life. I am very much pro-traditional marriage. I'm pro-Second Amendment. I, again, very much believe that we must secure our borders from illegal immigration. There are several issues that I'm sure that we could find difference with. As to third parties uniting, I'm not sure that I would oppose that under the right circumstances and with the right candidate. It's not about me as far as I'm concerned. I'm not here because I'm on an ego trip or because I'm trying to do something for myself. I really believe the message must go out, and I'm trying to bring that message to the American people. If Ron Paul were to head up a third-party rally, I would be the first one to throw my flag in his direction.
Okay. Our next question.
For all candidates, what is your position on the impeachment of George W. Bush?
Position on the impeachment of George W. Bush. Congressman Barr, you led an impeachment charge once.
I have some passing familiarity with the concept. Absolutely correct. As a matter of fact, it was almost, it'd be 11 years ago, 1997 in November, when I filed the very first formal instrument, an inquiry of impeachment. The impeachment of George W. Bush is obviously a moot point. I mean, we're just a few months away from him leaving office. Thank you, Lord. And the Congress is out of session. There's no opportunity for it. It's a moot point at this point. I did testify just a few months ago before the House Judiciary Committee on issues that Dennis Kucinich here in Ohio and a number of others, including myself, had raised with regard to abuses of executive branch power by this administration, such things as signing statements, the illegal wiretapping of American citizens, and so forth. And these are very important issues. But Congress should have looked into months and months ago to determine whether or not there was sufficient evidence to determine exactly what this administration had done so that the gentleman's question could be answered. At this point, Congress has let too much time slip by, and it's a moot point.
Mr. Baldwin.
Dan, thank you for the question. Bob is right. It is a moot issue at this point. I think the question, though, illustrates the problem of the lack of accountability by the two major parties that control our political system. The Founding Fathers' idea in creating an executive branch, a legislative branch, and a judicial branch was for the purpose of providing checks and balances each to the other, so that you would not have a rogue judiciary, for example, or a rogue executive branch, so that the other branches could bring balance and justice into the federal government. The problem is we haven't had that accountability because the two major parties would more rather take care of their own parties than take care of what's right for America. George Washington was exactly right in his farewell address when he warned us that an over-infatuation with political partisanship would lead ultimately to the demise of our country, because the interest of party would take precedent over the interest of America. And that's exactly what we have with these two major parties, and that's why I concur with Ralph and Bob that we must come to a point in this country where we break up this duopoly of the two-party system.
Chuck Baldwin, thank you very much. Ralph Nader.
Unanimity, it looks like. The criminal recidivist regime of Bush and Cheney is the most impeachable regime in American history. The American Bar Association, full of conservative Republican lawyers, sent 3 papers, 3 reports to George W. Bush in 2005, 2006, charging him with serious violations of the U.S. Constitution. In 5 areas they're impeachable. Criminal war of aggression that was undeclared in Iraq. Number 2, systemic torture. Number 3, what Bob Barr just mentioned, snooping on Americans without judicial warrant. That's a 5-year jail term. That's a first-class penalty. Number 4, incarcerating Americans without filing charges, denying them habeas corpus. Number 5, the signing statements by Bush. He set a record where he says, I'll sign this bill by Congress, but I, King George IV, will decide whether to obey it or not. After they leave office, they are still subject, Bush and Cheney, to the criminal laws. They can still be prosecuted, just as Nixon was about to be prosecuted for a one-time burglary obstruction of justice by the Watergate Task Force report. And we recommend DAs all over the country to rustle up their statute books and convene grand juries.
So to be clear, Mr. Nader, you would say let's go forward with an impeachment, but Congressman Barr and Chuck Baldwin, it's a moot point. Pretty much?
I don't think that, I think he's saying that the criminal process, once Bush leaves office, should handle it. That it's not tied down to simply the term of the Congress, I think.
Yeah, they're not immune to the criminal laws. People often think they are. They're not.
Our next question.
Since the Social Security and Medicare programs were both established to protect and benefit American citizens, should I as a citizen have the right to opt out of those programs if I think it's in my best interest, or is the federal government better equipped to decide that for me? And if the latter, would I be best off yet if they had access to my entire paycheck and decided for me how all my money should be spent and hopefully gave me like a weekly allowance?
Chuck Baldwin, you get this is for all 3 of you. Chuck Baldwin, you first.
Well put, and I could not agree more. That's one of our major planks. Obviously, you cannot go to senior citizens in our country, people that have put into Social Security all their lives, and tell them, oh, we're sorry, that institution no longer exists. That not only would be wrong, it would be immoral in my view. But for younger Americans such as yourself, those who have their careers and their futures ahead of them, I think it's absolutely essential that we give them the freedom and the opportunity to opt out of those government systems, to be able to privately finance their own retirements. And I think most of us recognize that to do so would be far better in the end than what we currently have, not to mention the fact that we are breaking the bank and the money is not even there. How we can afford it is anyone's guess. So our response, the Constitution Party, my response personally is I think absolutely yes. I believe you should have the right as a young American, as a young adult, you would have that. If I'm President of the United States, I would do everything that I could to give you the liberty and the right to opt out of that system if you so desired and to pursue a private interest for your own benefit.
Thanks very much, Chuck Baldwin. Congressman Barr.
Both Senator McCain and Senator Obama, representing respectively the Republican and the Democratic parties, are both deathly afraid of touching the third rail of American politics, and that's why, for example, with the current administration, even though President Bush talked a good game, a big game about tackling the entitlement programs that are going to swamp the economy of this country, you think the $10 trillion current debt is bad. Look at the $100 trillion unfunded liability that is out there for these other entitlement programs, including Social Security. Bush talked about it, didn't do anything about it. It didn't even come up in any meaningful way at all in the recent debates. I'm glad that it's come up here because it does illustrate an immoral program whereby the government takes, by threat of force, money from individuals and doesn't even provide them an ownership interest in the program itself. I mean, what could be more immoral than that? We have put forward in our campaign a very comprehensive program for personal, individual investment accounts. That is the way we need to be moving, and it is particularly important for young people, such as the gentleman who asked the question, to push for that.